The courtroom wasn't silent. It was smothered in whispers, suppressed laughter, and the heavy air of arrogance. A teenager stood alone at the front, his frame slender, his shoulders squared but tense, his suit slightly too big, as if borrowed from a closet meant for someone older, someone important. The judge looked down at him from the high bench, amusement pulling at his lips. The jurors exchanged uncertain glances. The gallery leaned in, curious and entertained, as though they were watching a child attempt to play a role reserved for grown men. The mockery wasn't hidden, it filled the room like smoke. Yet beneath the ridicule, something else simmered, something no one saw coming. Because this was not just a teenager fumbling in a world beyond his reach. This was Marcus Reed, a prodigy forged not in privilege but in struggle. And before the day ended, the same judge who mocked him would find his laughter twisted into silence. This courtroom would not be remembered for cruelty. It would be remembered for revelation. But how could a teenager, dismissed by everyone, turn a system built to crush him into the very stage of his triumph? Marcus Reed's world was not built on fairness. He grew up in the forgotten edges of the city, where the paint peeled from apartment walls and the hum of broken streetlights filled the night. His mother, Angela, was the cornerstone of his life. She worked long hours as a nurse, often leaving before dawn and returning well after the sun had set, her tired smile a reminder of sacrifices Marcus refused to waste. Money was always short, but books were never absent. Marcus scoured used stores, thrift bins, and library shelves for anything that could expand his mind. While other kids played video games or fought over sneakers, Marcus devoured history, philosophy, and eventually law. His first encounter with a dusty volume of legal cases came at age 12. Hidden on the bottom shelf of a second-hand store, the dense text should have discouraged him. But instead, he saw in it a map, a way to understand the rules of a world designed to keep people like him on the margins. From then on, his nights were lit not by television glow, but by the pale light of a desk lamp, illuminating stacks of legal pads filled with notes. His walls bore sticky notes of case precedents, scribbled arguments, timelines of justice miscarried and corrected. Angela often peeked into his room after her shifts, watching him hunched over books bigger than his arms, and though exhaustion lined her face, pride softened her eyes. By 16, Marcus had a mind sharpened like a blade. He understood not just the words of the law but its soul, how it could be twisted into chains or wielded as a sword. Yet to the outside world, he remained invisible, another black teenager walking through a city that refused to see him. Then came the moment that would propel him into the courtroom. His cousin, Jamal, accused of a crime he hadn't committed. What should have been a minor misunderstanding spiraled into charges that threatened to derail his future. It was the kind of case the system devoured daily, young, black, disposable. But Marcus refused to let his cousin become another statistic. He stepped forward, not as a witness, not as a bystander, but as the only one bold enough to challenge the machinery of injustice. With determination burning through his veins, Marcus prepared himself to face a world that doubted him before he even spoke. And so, on the morning of the trial, he walked into the courthouse wearing a suit too big, carrying nothing but his notes, his resolve, and a truth no one could silence. The courthouse loomed large, its stone fouet a monument to authority. Inside, the corridors buzzed with footsteps, murmurs, and the faint scent of polished wood. When Marcus entered, heads turned immediately. He was too young, too different, too unexpected. Some smirked, others whispered. To them, this was not the arrival of an advocate, it was a spectacle. As the case was called, Marcus stood at the defense table, dwarfed by the towering stacks of folders the prosecution carried. The judge entered, his robe sweeping behind him, his presence commanding. He looked at Marcus, and a small, mocking smile spread across his face. The gavel struck, and with it, the atmosphere solidified. This would be no ordinary trial. From the first moment Marcus spoke, the room chuckled. His voice was calm but youthful, his presence serious but unusual. The judge leaned back, his smirk deepening with every word Marcus uttered. The prosecutor rolled his eyes, radiating confidence in an easy win. Even the gallery, neighbors, strangers, passers-by who came for curiosity, leaned forward, entertained by what they thought would be the collapse of a boy out of his depth. But Marcus was no amateur. He had studied every detail of the case, dissected every inconsistency, and built his arguments like a fortress, piece by piece. He began to dismantle the prosecution's claims. He pointed out timelines that didn't match, reports that contradicted one another, evidence that seemed more convenient than credible. At first, the courtroom didn't notice. They were too caught up in their assumptions. But as Marcus's arguments grew sharper, the atmosphere shifted. The prosecutor's smirk faltered when Marcus highlighted a glaring contradiction in the police officer's testimony. The jurors, once skeptical, began leaning in. Captivated by the precision of his reasoning, even the gallery grew quiet, their laughter fading into stunned silence. Still, the judge resisted. He cut Marcus off, sustained objections without reason, dismissed valid points with waves of his hand. His authority, once unquestioned, became a shield for his pride. But Marcus refused to be silenced. For every interruption, he found another path. For every dismissal, he returned with evidence too strong to ignore. The rising tension in the room was palpable. It was no longer about one boy versus the system. It was about whether truth could break through walls of arrogance and prejudice. And Marcus was determined to break them all. The peak of the trial arrived like a storm breaking. Marcus had saved his most powerful evidence for last. A meticulous analysis of police records and timelines that revealed not just error, but intent. For days he had cross-referenced documents, combed through inconsistencies, and pieced together a narrative of misconduct. Now, in the hushed courtroom, he laid it all out. With steady hands, he presented each document, each timestamp, and each detail that tore apart the foundation of the prosecution's case. He revealed how officers had targeted Jamal not because of guilt, but because of prejudice. The pattern was undeniable, the proof irrefutable. The courtroom, once filled with chuckles, was now silent. Jurors exchanged wide-eyed glances. The gallery held its breath. The prosecutor shifted uncomfortably, realizing his case had collapsed. But the most striking transformation was the judge. His mocking smile was gone, replaced by a face drained of color. The gavel, once used to silence Marcus, now rested heavily in his trembling hand. The authority he had wielded like a weapon had been shattered by the precision of a boy he had laughed at only hours before. In that moment, the power dynamic inverted. Marcus, the underestimated teenager, stood tall, commanding the room not with arrogance but with truth. The boy mocked as a fool had become the embodiment of justice itself. It was the turning point, the moment no one in that room would ever forget. The verdict came quickly after that. Jamal was declared free, the charges dismissed, the misconduct exposed. But the trial's impact went far beyond one case. News of the teenage genius spread across the city. Articles were written about the young attorney who silenced a courtroom. Law professors reached out, fascinated by his brilliance. Community leaders spoke his name with pride, seeing in him the embodiment of resilience and hope. Strangers wrote letters, sending encouragement, support, and even offers of mentorship. But for Marcus, the victory was never about fame. It was about proving something deeper. That knowledge could dismantle arrogance, that truth could silence mockery, and that justice, though fragile, could be reclaimed even by the most unlikely of voices. The judge, who once mocked him, never forgot the humiliation of being silenced by the very boy he underestimated. His laughter haunted him, serving as a reminder that arrogance could crumble when confronted by truth. Marcus returned to his community not as a legend, but as a beacon. Children looked at him and saw possibility. Parents spoke his story at dinner tables. Teachers cited him as proof that brilliance existed everywhere, not just in privileged halls of power. The trial had ended, but its echoes carried far into the future. And so, a courtroom that began as a theater of ridicule ended as a stage of revelation. A teenager walked in dismissed as a joke and walked out as a force of justice. His story is a reminder that brilliance can come from the most unexpected places, and that underestimating someone because of their age or skin color can backfire in ways no one sees coming. If Marcus's story moved you, take a moment to reflect on how many voices are silenced every day before they get the chance to be heard. Don't let this be just another story you forget. Make it part of a conversation we all need to have. Like this video if you believe in standing up against injustice. Comment below with your thoughts. Because your voice matters, share this story so others can be reminded of the power of resilience. And most importantly, subscribe for more stories that challenge perspectives, inspire change, and shine a light on truths too often overlooked. Because sometimes, the greatest revolutions begin with the smallest voices.